Here for our midweek recap. Wasn't able to do it last week. I was actually away taking one of the core courses for my licensing here within the BIC. So didn't get around to being able to do that last week. And so I want to do that this week, though. Want to talk a little bit about what we talked about on Sunday, which was the shade that fades. Talking about and looking at Jonah's story in Jonah chapter 4, where Jonah walks out of the city. He's mad at God because God didn't wipe out all the Ninevites. And he goes outside the city, builds himself a little shelter, and sits back to watch and wait to see if God will destroy Nineveh. And as we know, God doesn't do that. But what God does do is a little lesson for Jonah as he builds or he grows a plant up that gives Jonah some shade. Jonah loves it. It's the most positive emotion we see from Jonah in the whole book. And then God sends a worm to kill the plant. The plant dies. Jonah's mad again. A couple times just in Jonah chapter 4, we see Jonah despairing to the point of death. I think 3 times in the chapter, Jonah's talking about, it'd be better if I was dead, which, as we talked about, seems a little ungrateful for a guy that God just saved through miraculous events and gave a second chance for him to be constantly complaining and wishing that he was dead. Beside the point, what we did talk about, though, were 3 different shades that we can trade for eternal souls, that we can consider more important, or that kind of get in the way of us valuing eternal souls. That first one was the shade of preference. We all have preferences. Every single one has preferences, from the youngest to the oldest. We have a way that we think things should be done. We have a way that we like things to be done, that we would prefer they are done in. And when we don't put preferences in the rightful place, that we can find ourselves trading the temporary shade of preference for eternal souls. We can allow our preferences to get in the way of us reaching people for Jesus, both those, and keep us from being able to train the saints the way the Word of God encourages us to do when we focus on our preferences. Now, I know I can hit some of the same preferences on a regular basis because they're so prevalent within the local church. Preferences like music and dress and things like that, those are easy to focus on because they create the most problems. Most churches have had it somewhere in their history that have been around for a while. They have somewhere in their history a battle over worship or a battle over dress. The way people are dressed, the type of music that's played, these are the battles that churches fight. Ironically, neither of those things has anything to do with reaching people for Jesus, have nothing to do with kingdom advancement. There is no one holiest version of music. There's no one holiest way to dress. And yet those are the battles we fight. Now, I've been in churches and I've heard of churches that fought over the color of carpets and the curtains and all of these ridiculous things. And I think the reason why we're able to fight like this, the reason why we have battles like this, is because we view the church, as I said a couple of weeks ago, as a cruise ship, not as a battleship. We see the church as its design was to cater to us, to feed us and entertain us. And that is not the purpose of the church. And if you're arguing about music, I'm sorry to say, but that's entertaining. That's you wanting to be entertained a certain way, because we have 167 other hours in a week that we can listen to whatever music we want. So when we come in, we can focus on the words, even if you don't know the song. There are songs I hear in church from time to time I've never heard before, whether it's a hymn or even a contemporary song. But guess what? I can appreciate the words. I can take that time to focus in on Jesus. As far as what people wear, I love that we are I'm part of Antrim, a church that you'll see, everywhere, everything from shirts and a t-shirt to 3-piece suits, and that's great. Worship God and however you see fit in that, as long as Christ is honored in it. But there are so many other things that we can argue about and so many more preferences that we can allow to get in the way. And I would encourage us to lay those down, put those preferences to the side. If you took what I encourage you to do seriously, maybe you've already made up your list of preferences that you would fight to protect. And that might be eye-opening in and of itself, to look at a list of preferences that you want that could potentially get in the way if we're not intentional to put those somewhere behind the mission and Jesus, our relationship with Jesus, and our relationship to the community of faith here at Antrim. The second shade that we talked about was the shade of complacency, and this one is strong. The American church, especially, I can't really speak too much toward international churches because I've never actually I've been in churches abroad, but I've never led a church. I've never been the lead pastor of an international church. So I can only speak for us here in America, and man, we have a consumer mentality. So often we fall into this rut of thinking of churches. What can the church do for me? What does it have for me? That consumerism that says the church is for me and the church is about me. We wouldn't say it that way, but that's how we act. We want the church, like I said, as a cruise ship. It's meant to feed us and to entertain us, and that's simply not what the church was designed for. The church should be focused on equipping the saints and reaching the lost. And when we're complacent, when, like Jonah, he goes outside the city and he just sits and waits, we just kind of waiting for the world to burn. And I didn't have it in my notes, but man, that one thing I felt the Spirit really spoke to us in the midst of that sermon, that idea that some of us, and myself included, in the past have said, man, I can't wait for Jesus to come back. I hope Jesus comes back today. I hope I'm going to live in expectation that Jesus is coming back today. And in a sense, there's a good way to do that. But there's also a really good way to say, Jesus, just give me one more day. God, just give me one more day to reach my neighbor, one more day to reach my coworker, one more day to reach my family member, one more day to just be your witness. Even if I don't know who you're sending me to, give me another day to reach one more person for Jesus. What a heart that is, to ask Jesus to hold off on what we want, which would be Jesus returning, so that we could bring one more person with us into the kingdom. I think that's a kingdom mentality right there. Certainly not the complacent nature of Jonah sitting out and watching and waiting and hoping the world would burn. So I hope that we would put aside the shade of complacency and be active, be proactive for the gospel, be engaged in the mission. The third shade was the shade of comfort. And this one hits us strong. We all like to be comfortable. Many of our prayers are about, Lord, please make my life more comfortable. I'm uncomfortable, Lord. Please help me to be more comfortable. And that's just not the heart of what Jesus tells us is going to be the Christian life. I mean, the Christian life, he tells us, is going to have trials. It's going to be difficult. Went to the gym this morning, and thankfully, I did not sit on a machine on my phone and just wait to get stronger. I pushed some weight around. I lifted some things that were heavy. I sweat a lot. My legs still hurt. I'm standing right now, and I don't want to be because my legs hurt. But that's the nature of working out. I'm not going to get stronger. I'm not going to build endurance if I don't engage in the difficult part. Same is true spiritually. God tells us that it's through the trials, it's through the struggles that he's going to create godly character in us. And when we engage that, when we embrace it, that's when we're going to grow so much better in our relationship with Jesus, when we realize that God is always trying to teach us something, that even messes that we create on our own, there's a way that God can teach us things through that. And so to embrace that, to not allow comfort to get so distracting that, like I shared the guy I went to college with who slept on the plywood, he was worried that comfort would destroy him. Man, if we had that mentality in the church, that we would refuse to get too comfortable in the church, knowing that when the battle rages, which we're always in a battle, so we're not worried about going back to active duty. We are active duty spiritually, but when the battle rages, we need to not be too comfortable, or else it could be the end of us. And so those are the three shades we talked about on Sunday. I hope that you were able to take those very seriously, to consider how we have traded our shade for eternal souls, and to be intentional to not allow that to happen. That the greatest emotion we would feel would not be for our comfort or for our preference or for our complacency, but the greatest passion, greatest emotions we would have would be kingdom oriented. I hope your week's going well. I hope this message hit you as hard as it did me, because like I said, I'm not preaching at you. I'm preaching from what God is smacking me over the head with. And so I was wrestling with a lot of these things, still am. Wrestling through some of those truths from Sunday. I hope you continue to wrestle through those. I hope that we would be kingdom-minded, intentional in what we do, not allowing ourselves to have that Jonah-like spirit where we just sit by and wait and ask God to do evil things because it fits our preferences, or because it fits our comfort, or because we just don't like people. I pray that we would have a heart for the lost and a heart for God's saints as we seek to advance his kingdom here at Antrim and abroad. God bless you all. Hope to see you Sunday at 10:45 a.m. It's going to be Father's Day. We're going to have a Father's Day sermon. So bring your dads, bring any guy you can find, and come on in. It's going to be a sermon not just for guys, but for all of us, that we would all grow through that process. So looking forward to it, and hope to see you 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. or 10:45. If you're not plugged into Sunday school happens at 9:30 a.m. We'd love to help you get plugged into that if you're not. God bless you all. Hope to see you Sunday.